Hey, and welcome back to a brand new episode of CPOV Autographs. I, of course, am still Matt, aka Stormageddon, and we're going to just get right into this week's episode. I have nothing to plug, nothing to promote, at least at this very moment, but I will have some news and some cool stuff on the horizon, personal appearances, panels, conventions, all that good stuff, so stay tuned. But for the moment, I just want to talk about my incredible guest, Victoria Tran. She is the community director at Innersloth, known for her cursed posts on Twitter, and it has very strong opinions about bubble tea. Victoria and I first met back at PAX East 2020. She's delightful, and I've been wanting to have her on the show for a while. She's also previously guested on Fun and Games, my video game podcast, and I'm just so glad she was able to join me today. Also, a brief update for after the interview. You're going to hear me talk about wanting to get Among Us merch, and I did, in fact, buy myself a little Red Crewmate and one of the Among Us mugs, and a Mug Us, if you will. I'm sorry. And so, yeah, just want to give that heads up. But I had an incredible chat with Victoria about what it's like to work in the games industry, what it's like to be a community director, the meteoric rise of Among Us, and the memification of it even, and a lot more. So without further ado, here is my incredible conversation with Victoria Tran. Right. Well, I am so excited to be talking to the incredible Victoria Tran today. Victoria, thank you for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you for having me on.
I'm so excited to have you here. So we first met back in the far-off time of 2020 on the floor of PAX East when you were promoting a little game called Boyfriend Dungeon. And you've done so much before then, since then, and now. And I'm so excited to have you on the show. I guess the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is you've had this really incredible career in communications, marketing, PR. Did you always start out to want to do that? Like, were you as like, a little 2-year-old with your glasses on going, I'm going to be in marketing?
I want to sell products to people. No, I didn't. I definitely grew up wanting to be a dentist.
Amazing.
Yes, very different. Very, very different. But I definitely had quite a traditional Asian upbringing. So it was like a doctor, a lawyer, that sort of thing. That was always the option for me. And I kind of just was like, all right. So originally I was just going to do healthcare stuff. But I think just obviously as I grew up playing games, and I played a lot of MMOs because they were free at a lot of them were free at the time. And I just kind of kept playing games with people and getting to know people from around the world, and maybe, some sketchy people. But I had a lot of fun with it, and it was really interesting to me. And I think that's kind of how I started moving towards that area of interest.
And so you mentioned free MMOs. What was your favorite free MMO that you played?
It's hard. Okay, so technically it's not free. But Ragnarok Online had some other servers and stuff. And I had so much fun with that. I think probably the most formative one for me was Tibia, because it was the first ever one that I played.
That's amazing. It's always curious to me, the MMO that hits with people. It's all based on age range. For me, I played WoW for a very long time. The MMO that stuck with me was City of Heroes, because I'm a comic book nerd, and so I got obsessed with that game. And there are folks who are still fans of it. It's long since retired its servers, but I find MMOs, favorite TV shows, or even favorite doctors in Doctor Who, people, their first is often their favorite, or their formative is often their favorite, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? It's you have, especially when you're a kid, or in those, it's your formative years. So the things that you're exposed to during that time is probably very important to you. And I honestly, so here's the weird thing. Here's to derail a little bit. The weird thing is, I've realized that Among Us is going to be that game for some people.
Yeah, sure is.
That's weird.
So wild. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've played Among Us with more with a larger diverse group of people than any other game I've ever played. Like how I knew Among Us was going to be a hit, it had nothing to do with, it was probably already a hit at this point, but I was playing it with two of my best friends and my spouse. And my spouse likes games and they'll play them, but like this was a game where it's like, they would ask to play it with our friends because it was a fun game to play. And like it was very easy to just pick up and go. There's not a lot of mechanics to learn, there's no narrative. Well, there's sort of a narrative, but like it's a lot of implied narrative. And so it's just you pick up and go. And I think it's wild that there are going to definitely be young kids who are playing this game. And it's like, that's what I grew up playing. I grew up playing Among Us.
Yeah. It's really cool to think about and like kind of frightening. So, yeah.
I'm glad you bring up Among Us. Obviously, you are, you work at Inner Sloth. You are the community director. You run one of the most chaotic Twitter feeds in the history of Twitter, and it's my favorite. My favorite is always, not even when you interact with me, although I do love that, it's when you interact with friends that I either know who are in or outside the games industry, and some of the stuff, and like, also every time I see a piece of fan art, I'm like, oh, I'm going to send this to Victoria so they can see it, and you've already seen it every time. Like, it's always like, you're so on top of that. Do you have just like favorite creators that you look for to share the artwork with and to like interact with?
Yes, 100%. I actually have like the secret list that I always check on like daily. Like we have so many wonderful fan artists like in our Discord, on Twitter, like everywhere. I feel like a parent and I can't be like, I have a favorite child.
Right, of course.
So
of course.
It's really difficult, but I know especially I think for our overseas fans, like obviously like I can only work in English. Maybe that wasn't obvious, but I can only work in English. And I think the wonderful thing about like fan art, especially, is that you can just, you can tell so much of like the care and love that goes into something, especially when you don't understand their native language. And I really appreciate seeing like all the like Japanese artists we have. There's Korean ones, there's Brazilian ones. It's lovely.
It's amazing. And like, it's funny too. When I first started playing Among Us, I would never consider the crewmates cute on any level. But now that the plushies exist, which I'm going to need to get at some point, because clearly I have room for a crewmate to just hang out up there. But like also the comics and stuff and all the different things that people create, like they are these adorable little beans. And like, okay, do you have a favorite color, crewmate? I know
do.
It's like picking your favorite child. You do? Okay. Who's
do.
Your favorite color?
I always pick the brown crewmate because I feel like the brown crewmate just doesn't get a lot of love, and it kind of looks like a little poop.
It does look like a little poop, and you can put a little poop on its head. So
yeah, see, I love it. It's a little underdog.
You heard it here, exclusive on Autographs. Victoria likes the poop crewmate.
It's true. Quote me.
Talk a little bit about what it's like to be the community director for Inner Sloth. I mean, you joined that team pretty much on the rise, right? Like you would join the team just about right after like it first like broke through on Twitch and stuff, and you've been with them since. It must be a roller coaster ride from the time you joined to now, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's definitely been like a learning experience in the best way. And I think the beautiful thing about it is because it's like such a small indie team, like I was their first hire. So there were originally 3 people and then I was their 4th person, is that everyone is figuring out, like they're figuring out, I'm figuring out. It's all good. And it's interesting because like your brain does that thing where it just eventually gets used to whatever is happening. And I forget sometimes that like Among Us has still this like huge pull on people until something wild happens. And I'm like, oh yeah. Oh my God, people care. Because otherwise it's like, oh, this is like my job. It's like, I'm now used to just the amount of people that I talk to every day. So it became less of like a frightening thing, I guess, for me. Like when I first started, it was definitely frightening. But now it's like, oh, now it's my everyday job.
That's amazing. And like you've worked more or less in and around indie games for a while. You were community director at KidFox, and you did work as a community strategist for Unpacking. Talk about why indie games, like have you always had a love for indie games growing up? You know, obviously when we were little kids, like there weren't really any indie games. The indie games were kind of like the shovelware, but like now, probably since the Xbox Live Arcade era and since, there's been so many. Has that always been like a favorite of yours, is like the smaller, more unique gaming experiences that we find in that space?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think they have like, you know, each kind of genre or AAA double I or whatever, you know, the classifications are. They all have like such an interesting place in like the gaming industry, and neither one is like necessarily, I think, like better than the other. It depends on what you consider better. But for me, indie games has always been something I've been really interested in working in. I think because I personally don't always love the games that I work on. And I'm not, and like, that's not to like diss any of the games that I work on, because I've been very honest with studios sometimes. It's like, I can't like every single game. But one of the things that really motivates me is to really directly interact with developers and see all of the ways that they care about the game, the ways they care about the players. And that's really inspiring to me. So I think when we're just talking about working with indie games, it's really the people behind it that make me so excited. And obviously like the stories and the care and the personal like feelings that they put into their games is really something that makes me love indie games quite a bit.
I mean, I just feel like also indie games have had the freedom to tell stories that other larger studios can't always tell, because profit is important to everybody. But I feel like for the AAA studios, it's obviously at the forefront very often for these giant publishing houses.
For sure.
I'm curious, with games that you've worked on that have now come out and that you're no longer part of those teams, it must be easy and hard to see them being on the outside of them, right? Because they're all your children. And it must be, though, satisfying to see them succeed even as you've moved on. I mean, I think about games like on your website. Yes, I'm referring to your webpage for my but like games like Unpacking and Boyfriend Dungeon that had a cult following for so long until they came out, and now they're these huge hits and like are getting DLC and all that stuff. It must be really cool to see that happening, even though you've gone on to work with Among Us now.
Oh, 100%. It's really nice to see. I think it's like, it is that thing, especially, it was really hard for me to leave Kitfox, which was like my first in studio like job. And I was there for like 4 years, and I was there since like before Boyfriend Dungeon existed. So it very much felt like my child. so leaving it was so hard. But yeah, it does suddenly become one of those things where like after you leave it, you get to actually enjoy it more, I think. Because now I don't know what's coming. And now I don't need to like, you know, be worried about like marketing something or making sure like this is happening. But I can enjoy it as a consumer and as a player and be excited for things that are coming out. So it's like a little bit bittersweet. And Unpacking, of course, is just so, so lovely. I was there like 6 months before launch maybe. And then I like helped launch it. And that was really wonderful. And yeah, I think it's just like, it's one of those things where I don't have a child, but I assume if I had a child, this is what it would feel like. I'm like, they're going off to university. They have their first job. They're getting married. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't need to like play a part anymore, but I'm in the background and I'm so proud. And if you need my help, I'll be here.
I mean, but now you're the parent of so many little multicolored beans. So, you know,
you've
moved on to a larger family.
Now I have murder beans.
Murder beans. Yeah, I mean, I think also when you work in an industry, it's hard to always enjoy what the industry has to offer because you're so focused on working on it. You know, it's folks like to ask me, hey, what's your favorite podcast? And I go, I don't know. I mean, I listen to all these shows, but like I'm also working on all this stuff. And it's like, I imagine that must happen to you also. Of course, folks know you within the games industry. They want to know like, what are your favorite games? What are you playing? And I have to imagine a lot of it is like, I don't know. I'm so busy working on this thing. I don't really get to enjoy the things I want to enjoy.
It's true. I definitely play less games than I used to, than like before I joined the games industry. I played way more games, and now I definitely play way less. And I think my taste in games has changed. And I think everyone's tastes kind of evolve as they get older and all that kind of stuff. But I have realized I no longer ever want to touch a multiplayer game. like obviously like I'll play Among Us and I'll play like other multiplayer games still like with friends and stuff, but if I'm trying to relax on my own time because my job is to talk to people, I'm like, no, we are just focusing on a single player game. I don't even know if I want dialogue sometimes. I'm just like, just let me play a game with action or something.
That's amazing. Do you have a current game that you're like using to decompress, or is like your go-to relaxation game?
Yeah. So currently, I got really into Planet Zoo.
Ooh,
really into
cool.
Planet Zoo. But before that, I was playing Peglin, if you know it.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Peglin is super fun. And I'm really excited for more from that. But I like beat the like final boss. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait till it comes out of early access again before I play some more. So yeah, those kinds of games I've been really into.
That's always the interesting thing about the world of early access now. Like I got to meet a bunch of really cool creators at PAX East this year, and like a few of them, like their games are in early access, and I was lucky enough to get a code to play the game, and I'm like, this is really great, but I don't want to play more of it because I want to play it when it's done. And it's like that battle of like, do I keep playing the early access version, or do I just play enough and then wait till it's finished?
I definitely am like one of those people where I'm like, I need to complete this all in one sitting, or I want to just grind for so long. So I usually try to wait until it's out of early access, but sometimes I can't resist, like with Peglin. So
going back to multiplayer games and of course Among Us, tell me a little bit about what it's like to try and not only curate marketing for a game like that, but like talking about when, you know, there have been a lot of ups and downs for Among Us as far as like the servers go down and there are bugs and, you know, making sure that things work. Like, what has that been like to try and navigate that while still trying to keep things light and cheery and fun and like engaging with the audience? Has that been a difficulty to try and manage the tone while moving through the harder times?
yeah, sort of. I think I've been really lucky with Inner Sloth because they just fully trust me to kind of do whatever I think is right. And that means that I've been able to be like, I get to show a little bit more emotion on like the Among Us account. So for example, when we had servers go down, I think I had like tweeted like that the servers were down and whatever, but also that I was annoyed. Because I was like, it's a Saturday afternoon. I wanted to do things. Stop. Whatever is happening here, I don't appreciate this. So it's been nice, I think, in that respect of just like being able to be trusted with these kinds of things. And it is a lot of, I think there's still like a lot of like emotional management I think I need to do, because like I can come into like a work day and be just really pissed off out of like something else. I don't want that to come out in like Among Us or anything. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to tackle. And I think honestly, it's still one of those things that I'm working out myself. Community management and burnout is quite, it's quite normal. So yeah, it's interesting is what I'll say.
And like, I mean, speaking of interesting, like because of how Among Us kind of felt like an overnight success, even though there's no such thing, of course, it had been around for actually a while before it caught fire, as it were. But like, then it led to like some really strange things happening. Like, for example, playing the game with AOC, playing it with Jimmy Fallon, like, talk a little bit about that side of it and how it kind of became almost a celebrity unto itself, which not a lot of games get to do. Like that, like the status of like World of Warcraft and like, you know, Star Wars, like it's hit that height where it's just common knowledge. People know imposters, sus, and all that. Like, talk about that kind of side of it and how it's strange that this thing has become like a pop culture icon of its own.
Yeah, it's really weird, isn't it? Strange how these things happen. Yeah, it is. It's really cool. It's very interesting look at being a meme.
Right.
And like even then though, it's like it's more I don't this sounds like kind of pretentious. Like it's more than just a meme. It's a moment. It's a cultural phenomenon or whatever. But it being, I think, in this position is one of those things where I realize it's like, oh, there is so much power behind like Among Us, but also any of these kinds of things, but especially in things that can bring people together, right? So whether it is Star Wars, whether it's Among Us, whether it's something else, it's like at the core of it, what you see beyond like the jokes and everything is that there's just this place where a lot of people can gather and talk about a certain thing or a certain interest. And from there, they kind of branch off and they have different friendships based around it. And then they all find a different thing to fall in love with. And I think that's a really amazing thing to see. And especially with like Among Us, I think because a lot of people make those jokes, the really fun part is to see like beyond those jokes, or like when I actually do respond to people, they go, oh, hey, like I was joking about this thing, like, oh, Among Us, but I just want you to know, like this meant a lot. Like 2020 was really hard and Among Us was there. And thank you so much for making this game. And like things like that is, I think, just gives so much humanity in games and in the things that we do and makes it kind of worth like all of the fires possibly. So yeah, it's really cool. And having like AOC play it, having it on the Tonight Show, very cool, very fun, very nerve-wracking.
Oh, I'm sure.
But genuinely, like it hits really different when you have someone, just a random stranger, come up to you to be like, this game maybe like saved my life, or like connected me to my family in a way that we've never connected before. And that hits way harder than, as cool as, you know, again, playing with AOC is, like that hits very differently.
Well, and I have to imagine that's a testament to the Among Us community. I mean, just based on my friend groups that have played it, like it seems like it's got to be one of the greatest gaming communities because folks just seem to be having a ton of fun with this game.
It's really lovely. And I think we're really lucky to have a good community. And I mean, like, I'm not going to lie, like, there's still like some issues with it. I think when you have such a large gaming population and so many people on the internet playing it, it's not like, I'm not going to paint it as like, it's perfect and there's nothing wrong. And I will never acknowledge that there's anything to improve on it, because there is.
Sure.
But at the core, I think it has a really strong player base.
Now, saying you've obviously played a lot of Among Us. We all have at this point. Do you have any friends that you just don't trust anymore because of this game? Because I know I do. Like, there are friends of mine that they could say they're not the imposter constantly, and I'd be like, you're lying to me. I don't believe you. And I have to imagine that
100%. And like same goes for like my own coworkers. Like, I can't trust you anymore. It's really like that.
It's one of those games that I think, like, I like imposter games. I've played tons of board games that are similar vein, you know, like your werewolf and that kind of thing. I think there's some kind of, it's just fun to get into the role play of it. But I think what's really interesting about Among Us is that you guys really lean into the sense of humor. I mean, just thinking about all of the homages that are within it, like one of the earliest ones I clocked is on the volcano level. When you fall in the lava, you do the thumbs up like the Terminator. Like, I have to imagine the team is super conscious and into pop culture for things like that to permeate the game.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's also just like, so a lot of like the early homages and stuff is like all due to Puffballs United, which is one of the co-founders at Innersloth. And it is, all of that stuff is less, I think, like pop culture. Like, obviously it is like a sense of humor that they have with it, but also just like a really keen eye for details. One of like the earliest things that I know like he talked about was literally that whenever the team was creating levels or doing art or stuff, it's like having just tiny details that maybe you wouldn't notice if you weren't looking, but like just things that make the world feel a little cozier, a little bit more alive, rather than just doing like, you know, just plain walls or whatever, but having like little posters. And on the posters, there's like little references to things or just little Easter eggs all around. I think those things and having that kind of sensibility of like, I want this to be like, not just about like, obviously about the core gameplay, but like if you take the time to look around, that there are things to really enjoy.
You are, of course, known for your social media snark, and not just on Twitter, but we do have to talk a little bit about the Among Us TikTok account, because some of the stuff that you do there is great, like rating, I believe, the bathrooms in Among Us was a TikTok you guys did.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
It sounds like something you guys would do. I'm just curious, like, what's that like creating video content and short form comedy for that account versus, you know, tweeting and, you know, text-based stuff, I have to imagine it's a different kind of skill to create those kinds of videos, as well as updates and other like stuff to get out to the fans. Like, talk about that process and integrating TikTok into like the community management formula.
For sure. And I think TikTok is terrifying. Video content, like versus just text-based content, is like a whole other kind of thing that you need to integrate yourself into. And obviously it's like, you don't have to show your face. I think that is something that I started doing, but it's like, you don't have to do that. But I will say, I think just like the amount of time that you need to plan things and like the kind of comedic beats that you have to hit is very different on TikTok. And I think it's a much higher demand on your time and on your energy. And I should say, like, as of, I think, a month before this, we hired on a new community manager, Chris Dorsey, and he's helping me out with the TikTok because it just became way too much of a drain on me to do it all the time. But it is all that to say, like, it is a really fun platform and I do enjoy it a lot. And I think over there you can be even more chaotic in some respects. So it's a lot of fun.
Do you have a favorite kind of cursed crewmate? There have been so many over the last few years. And like, there's the horse mate, there's the spider mate. Like, do you have like, or has there ever been an idea that you pitched like, they're never going to go for this nonsense, and then they go, oh yeah, let's make a thing or do an art? Like, have you ever been caught off guard by like a crazy idea you've had for something cursed?
So honestly, I know that I'm the one known to be quite chaotic, but I will admit sometimes I have to be like to the team, like, no, we cannot do that. That's a little bit too much.
Amazing.
So yeah, so I think it's like the team gets along well. So I think it's because we all kind of work from that same sense of humor and value like standpoint. It works out really well. But my favorite crewmate, I think right now it has to be the long crewmate, like just very long, very tall. The torso is very tall. It's kind of cursed and chaotic, and it's weird. Like a snake.
It has like a Slender Man vibe to it.
It does. It does. It's like slender but thick at the same time.
Amazing. That's the quote for the episode. It's like
slender but thick at the same time.
I want to talk a little bit about how cool it is that not only have you done such incredible community work and marketing work, but you also have done a lot of talks. And you've put together like Game and Color, which is an awesome group. Like, talk a little bit about the stuff that you're doing outside of your main focus to like grow the communities, bring people together, and like also shed light on the difficulties for people of color in the games industry and stuff like that. Because I think your work outside of the main being chaotic on Twitter role is also really fascinating.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so Game and Color was something that I started with some game developer friends who are all very lovely. And it's still sort of like, we put it slightly on hiatus just because COVID hit and it depended a lot on in-person meetings. But one of the things was just to have a place for game developers of color, especially in Canada, because we didn't really have it, or we didn't really know of any at the time, to just gather and be able to like share their game prototypes and to have a place to talk about the industry and to talk about like any troubles they were having, share resources, that sort of thing. And just having kind of a place of solidarity and being able to, talk to people who might understand where you're coming from more, especially, as our industry tends to be majority leaning white. So that kind of thing was really nice to us. And we still like have our a little Facebook group. We still do like a lot of resource sharing and talking about that kind of things. And I think just having those kinds of spaces, just where you can feel like you have somewhere to go if you need to, is something that's really important, especially in the industry. Yeah, so there's that. And then like on the other off time I have, you mentioned it before, but I do have my website, but there it's like when I have my newsletter and when I write my blog posts, like part of that and like so much of that is because when I first started, I just didn't know what to do. Like I couldn't find the resources that I needed. And a lot of the things I found weren't game specific. So I figured, I was like, well, I'm just going to write stuff. And if I'm wrong, someone will tell me. Or if hopefully my experiences are helpful to someone else and we can learn from each other. And that's where a lot of that kind of started.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're ultimately all faking it till we make it. And that was always my thought. Like when I first started my music podcast almost 10 years ago, God, that doesn't feel real. I was like, well, if I'm not doing this right, someone will be like, hey, Matt, you should change this, or hey, Matt, you should do that. And then no one stopped me. And like 4 more shows later and way too much time. And like, it's just fascinating to me. And I feel like video games especially, a lot of it is still so young, even though it's been around so long, and we're all just kind of making it up as we go along. Now that you've been doing this as long as you have, is there anything you wish you could tell like younger Victoria when she was first getting into the business? Like, hey, don't do this, or maybe look out for that, or here's a great idea.
I'm not someone who tends to like regret things or go like, I should have done this. So I can't say I would actually do any of that. However, I think one of the things I would say was just to be a little bit more okay with failing, I think, or making mistakes. I think still now, I mean, I still kind of get it, but even like way back then, I would freak out every time I did anything wrong. I was so convinced within like the first month of being hired at KitFox, I was going to be fired. I remember going to like my boyfriend at the time and being like, it's over for me, because I forgot to like BCC people in a mass email. And like,
oh no.
So everyone was like, reply all. And they would reply all to be like, next time you should do this in BCC. What are you doing? And they were just like blasting me in this giant email thread. And I'm like, I'm sorry. so things like that.
Well, yeah, I think we're also raised in a culture, at least I feel like in the US where I am, like, and I'm guessing it's similar in Canada, like, you have to do everything right. You can't make any mistakes, and you're going to get fired, and jobs is at will employment. And I think there's a lot of pressure to like overperform because like any mistakes, and obviously I must be an idiot and I got to get fired. And it's
exactly.
Like, it's not like you learn from your mistakes. And I think that's such great advice because, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I don't know about you, but I assume like me, you are an anxious person. A lot of nerds are, and it's very easy to be like, "Oh no, I've made a mistake. Oh God, everything's over. My life is gonna end." And to be able to like take a minute now as you get older, and I'm the same way, and be like, "No, it's just the anxiety. You're gonna be fine. People will tell you what like constructive criticism is a thing. You'll be okay." What do you think is one of the hardest things you've encountered in your job while doing the kind of work you've done, whether it's trying to share something about a game, interacting with a part of the community, trying to, explain something? Like what are some of the difficulties you've encountered while doing your job or challenges that you've had to meet?
Oh, so many. I'm like, okay, I'll try to keep it short. The first thing you will always learn in Community Management 101 is to always assume no one is reading whatever you write. No one reads. No one. You can make it as short as possible and still no one will read it. So that's a constant struggle. I have not figured out a way to fix it necessarily. So there's that. We're all guilty of it. We're all like, nobody reads. And I'm like, I sometimes don't read. It happens. Oh,
it happens to the best of us.
For sure. And I think... So this is less of like, I don't know if this strays from your original question. This is a little bit less like directly with the players and more with like the industry, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think one of the biggest things that I struggled with in the beginning is just, it partially is being taken seriously, but also not feeling like no matter what I had to like work my ass off. And like, it's fine. Obviously, working hard is like a virtue, like, all that kind of things that people say. But I think especially like in the games industry, and we talk about burnout a lot and all that, but it's like, especially I think when you are trying to get your game seen in front of people, when you're trying to build whatever brand or whatever, it's just this constant like need to create content, to create good content, and to know the algorithm, and to post daily on Twitter, and to post on TikTok, and to do this. And then like at the same time, people will be like, well, don't burn out. Like you should take a break. You should like do this. But at the same time, I'm like, but I also need to get results. What are you telling me? I can't listen to you right now. I need to do this thing. So I have a lot of sympathy for like I get still that like it's really easy for me now to say like, you don't worry about it. You don't need to work that hard. It'll work like whatever. While at the same time, like I know like partially like how I did what I did was like, I mean, again, I don't recommend it. It's like I like kind of burnt myself out doing a lot of things. So I think one of the things is just figuring out the kind of culture that we have around work and games being our hobby and games being our work as like a culture.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that also we are of an age. I'm lumping you in with my age because I think we're around the same age. But like we were taught you can only do one thing, and then we got to adulthood and we were like, no, actually you need to do 1,000 things if you want to feel satisfied. And the reality is there's no right answer. It's just what your preference is. But like for me, as someone who hosts 4 podcasts and produces 6 podcasts and streams and also does day job work, it's like, where's the balance? How do I avoid burnout? And I think we're not taught that because this is new ground. And I think we're all trying to teach each other like how to avoid burnout. And like, yes, the easy answer is do less work, but like, I don't know about you, my brain doesn't work that way. It's like,
it doesn't. And it's also one of those things where it's like coming from like a family that didn't have a lot of money. It's really hard to be like, just work less. Duh. Like, I need money. I'm like, are you kidding me? I have debts. What is this?
Yeah, I think that a lot of entertainment media, which games is definitely a part of, amongst other things, is like it's very easy to look at it and go, it's just games. It's fine. Like just chill and relax. And it's like, well, no, if you want to do a good job and you want to do the right thing and talk about the important stuff and, diversify what you're working on, it's like, that takes work, and some people don't want to put in that work, and that's totally fine. And it's like when you were talking about people who don't read, it's like I'm friends with a bunch of games journalists, some of them mutual friends of ours, and it's like the first comment will always be something, and then the journalist will reply, well, if you read the article, and it's like, yeah, it's interesting that I think people want results so instantly in the world that we live in that it's very hard to like take that next step, and people just want to go, well, I know what the answer is. They couldn't possibly have done this thing or talked about that thing when the answer is, well, actually, if you looked at the thing I worked hard on, you'd see that your answer is there.
Yeah, and I think this kind of touches upon like a lot of internet culture stuff, and I'm like obsessed with talking about internet culture. So this could be a very long podcast if I get too into it. But it's a lot of the ways that like I think the internet is structured, or like the ways in which we communicate, is so instantaneous. And obviously everyone's talked about this, doesn't leave a lot of space for nuance. But I think especially with like Twitter, is like it's very much dependent on like those mic drop moments. And those are the ones that we also highlight, right? It's like, oh my God, like look at how like this person replied and that's funny. And you screenshot that part and it's like, this is the mic drop moment. So yeah, just in the ways I think that we consume content, or the ways that the internet kind of encourages the consumption of content, makes it a really interesting area to navigate. And it's really hard to navigate it when you're also using the tool to like talk about it. So
yeah, I mean, I think also like social media, schools don't have a curriculum for teaching about social media, although they do now, but like because it didn't exist for that long. And now we're still trying to understand how it really affects us. I mean, I'm the kind of person who in one breath could be like, I don't care what the community thinks. I'm just going to do my thing. And then, I'll share something and go, it only got 3 likes. Why? I don't understand. It's like, we're complicated beings, and it's like we want the gratification. Like you can say that you're on Twitter and you don't want people to interact, or you don't want gratification, and that's fine. You could truly feel that way, but like you're on a platform designed for people to interact with you. So if that's not what you're looking for, it's still going to happen. And it's just, I think we're at a place where I don't know that any of us really knows what we want from social media. And like for me, it's a marketing tool for my podcasts and stuff, but also I like making stupid jokes and posting about the current Yakuza game I'm playing because I love that franchise. Like it's all of those things. And, it's real friendships now and real connections in a way that even 10 years ago we weren't making as easily. And so especially through the pandemic, like I've made some good friends through Discord and through Twitter during the pandemic because we're all at home. And I think we're still just trying to understand what that actually means for our brains.
For sure, for sure. It's a lot to figure out.
I want to talk a little bit about what the Among Us team has been working on, maybe a little bit of what's in the future. I know that like the popular narrative was, and I believe this is true, but that like when before Among Us broke big, they were thinking about Among Us 2 and like trying to figure out how to like recapture or whatever. That's always been the common narrative I've heard. I'm curious how much truth there is to that, and then also like what does the future of Among Us look like now, right? Like obviously, you know, it'd be very big budget AAA to be like, let's slap a 2 on it and roll out another one. But you guys have done such consistent and incredible support for the first game, adding stuff, new maps, new characters. I'm curious what that kind of roadmap looks like and the kinds of things that the team is excited about with this game as you continue to move forward with it.
Yeah, so Among Us 2 was actually a response to the first Among Us blowing up. Or the only Among Us blowing up, I guess. Because Among Us was never built to handle this many people, or to have like all these constant updates. I think by January 2020, they were basically like, yeah, Among Us is done now. We're going to stop working on it. We're going to work on a new game. It's done, whatever. Because at the time it didn't have, like it had players, but it didn't have like the massive amounts of players it has now. So when it started picking up and a lot of problems and a lot of like the code and like everything was still kind of not built for this, they're like, maybe we should just make an entirely new Among Us that can handle this. But then that didn't end up panning out, and they were like, no, we should just focus on the original one. So that's kind of how it worked out there. And I don't remember your other question.
No, it's okay. No, I was just curious, like what the roadmap looks like. Like you guys have launched new maps, you know, different game modes, so many cute little pets and skins and all sorts of stuff. Like, what does the future of Among Us look like now? Because like the team could go like, this game's done. Like this is the version, we'll keep supporting it, but we can move on to something else. But they're clearly working on more stuff to make this game, new platforms. It's literally on everything now. I could probably buy a toaster and play Among Us on it at this point. Like, I'm curious what the future of this game looks like, because it seems so ubiquitous and everywhere and constantly getting bigger and better.
Yeah. And to be fair, I feel like we're not on as many platforms as Skyrim is yet.
That's true. That's true. You'll get there.
But yeah, no, we're constantly improving it. It's one of those things where the game has meant so much to people, but also like originally the team had wanted to work on a lot of things for original Among Us, but never got to because of time constraints and money, because they didn't have any. So like the roles that you see, new maps that we're working on, they're all things that they wanted to originally work on, but just never had the time or the team or the finances to do so. So we want to work on that. And I think we want to keep making it a living game in terms of like keeping it updated with things, because so many people found joy in it that it feels wrong to just be like, yeah, we're done with it. That being said, we are also still, while working on Among Us and different modes, like we're working hide and seek and stuff, we are also working on another game. But I can't say anything about that other than we are working on another game.
Very cool. Is that, I wonder with that, like, that must be really exciting for the team, because you're working on Among Us as much as you love it for so long, to dive into something new and something different. Like, that must be not necessarily reinvigorating. Like, you're not bored with what you have, but it must be really exciting to be like, here's another thing now. Y'all, we're working on another thing.
Oh, for sure. I think it's a pretty not secret in the industry that game developers get tired of building their games. They're like, all right, I want, like, it's out, I'm done, I don't want to work on it anymore, I want to work on something new. Because you work on these games for like 5 years, for like 3, 4, whatever years. And, it's like when you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're like, okay, I want to refresh my mind. And game developers always have like, new game ideas that they want to make. So it's very tempting, like, after like a year in, you're like, I kind of want to just move on, but you can't because you have to work on your game.
Among Us has had some incredible crossovers over the last few years, and guested and stuff, had stuff guest on it. What is one of your favorite like crossover moments or collaborations with, or maybe one of the crazier ones? I mean, there have been some pretty ridiculous places we found crewmate skins and stuff. So I'm curious if you have like a favorite or standout one.
This is difficult because it is really fun to just see it everywhere. I love it. I love that people want to collab with us and have like our little crewmates kind of just running around everywhere. I think one of our first ones, or the first one we had, it was like with Fall Guys, and because
Which just makes sense.
It makes so much sense, and they're the beans and stuff, and that was really fun. We recently just had a Fortnite one, which like obviously like the internet went wild over.
Of course.
It's so funny to see. So, and then, oh my gosh, and then when we did Arcane, that was very, very cool because that's also a very good show.
Yes.
So yeah, there's so many things. Again, it feels like picking my favorite child.
It's true. I mean, what is that like? Is that where you guys pitch the company? Do those companies approach you? Is it case by case? Like, I'm curious how that dialogue starts.
Yeah, it's kind of both. It's either like if people want Among Us to make a cameo in their game, they usually approach us. But sometimes like a lot of things, it's just like kind of mutually both like being like, really admire your work. Want to do something together? Maybe. So yeah, it's kind of those things that kind of happen naturally. And then, again, it's helpful that Among Us had the kind of popularity it did because it makes these conversations much easier.
Sure. I am a little sad, though, that we've closed the door on Smash Brothers Ultimate. Would have loved to see a crewmate kicking Mario's butt, but you never know.
We wanted that. We were like, please, like, there's still some places where Among Us hasn't infiltrated, but I'm hoping. I will not give up.
I am curious if, just knowing you as long as I have through the internet, obviously a lot of your life and a lot of the things that you work on are games related. I have to imagine you like things outside of video games. Are there some things, I mean, I'm just shot in the dark here, right? But I'm wondering if there are things that, especially over the pandemic, that you've really gotten into outside of games that have really kind of gotten you through, or stuff that you found maybe through games that have led you to other things, whether it's TV, movies. I mean, you mentioned Arcane before, which was a phenomenal show. Have you found comfort in some other media besides, of course, video games?
Yeah, I'm very into manga and anime. I've been recently watching a lot of Spy X Family, which is my favorite right now. It's such a good show. So there's that. I feel like that's like a very typical combo of like games and anime. Like, so when I say that, I'm like, oh, wow, groundbreaking, Victoria. You like anime.
What? A gamer who likes anime?
Shocked, I tell you. But otherwise, other than that, gosh, other things that are not games and anime, very, very difficult, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Like, hanging out with friends is like a hobby, right?
Sure, why not? I mean, you do stream from time to time, I've noticed, on Twitch, which is always fun to watch. I have to imagine creating in that way is so different from the kind of creating you do for your day job, as far as it's on camera, being a personality, being a character on some level, and playing up to the cameras we all do. Like, is that relaxing for you to Twitch stream and to kind of like hang out with your community in that way? Or do you feel like it's just as much work as the other stuff that you do?
Both.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, because I don't stream for work, right? I don't do my personal streams for work. It's one of those things I do when I'm in the mood and I'm like, oh, I kind of want to hang out with, like, chat with people and play a game maybe and just kind of hang out. And I do it only when I feel like it, like when I have the social energy to do it, and then I have fun with it. But by the 2-hour mark, I'm like, okay, I'm exhausted. I don't want to do this anymore.
Gotta go.
Exactly. So it's not necessarily because I'm an introvert, so like it does socially kind of drain me, but it's not like in the same vein as like work would be, because for me it's sort of a hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I think that for me, I started enjoying streaming when I started doing it for charity events for friends, and when it was just fun. Like, doing it on a schedule, I never kept my schedule. I was constantly changing days. I was constantly like, oh, I don't think I'm going to stream today. And like, of course, at the end of the day, it's a thing that you're doing. But like, I don't know how people do it for a job. I'm I'm envious of the people who do it for a job because I can't. Like, there are days where I don't want to. Like, I'm an extrovert. I like to say I'm an extrovert to the minute I'm an introvert, right? Like, at my core, I'm an introvert, but I can be very extroverted. But like, the minute I'm done being extroverted, there's no like come down or like wind down. It's like, I'm done. I need to turn off. I've
100%.
had enough. And I feel like streaming is not necessarily always conducive for that. So like, that's why I always set time limits when I'm streaming too, because it's like, I don't want chat to see me become a cranky jackass because I've had enough of them. That's not their fault. That's on me.
Yeah. I totally get you on that. I'm definitely like, I can become an introvert, but I'm like, nothing beats just not talking to people sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about earlier about how you could never play another multiplayer game again and be like happy because your work is so much focused on that. And like, I came around on that too. I was someone who for a long time in college and post-college played a lot of MMOs, a lot of online multiplayer games. And I find now like sitting on my, I just recently finished Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which I'd never played before. I played it on Switch. And like just sitting on my couch with my Switch in my hand, playing that game by myself, it was like, this is nice. I feel like there's so that didn't stop me from tweeting about the game and still talking about playing it, but like, because I can't help myself. You know, it has to all be content, right?
Of course, if you're not making content, are you even alive? No.
Right? Obviously. But like, I think that there's like something as an adult that I didn't really experience as a kid is like, it feels good to kind of just be with my own thoughts and play a game, which is scary to say out loud sometimes. But like, I think I've come around to that as an adult, whereas a kid, it was like, I want to play with my friends and it's a group thing and it's all about community, which I still want to do, but I have a limit in a way that I don't think I did before with my social batteries.
Yeah. Definitely 100% relate to that. 100%.
Before we wrap up, a question I've been asking my guests a lot lately is, as we are still living through a pandemic that has not ended, please get vaccinated, boosted as much as you can, wear a mask. You know, and it's been hard for everyone on a multitude of levels. I like to look at the good in bad situations and try and look on the positive side. And I'm curious if there's like a standout moment or thing that's happened during the pandemic that you're like, I don't know that this would have happened at any other time, but I'm grateful that this thing happened, or like this thing got me through this time, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Among Us.
Right?
I don't know. I don't know what would have happened in work or in life if Among Us wasn't there and all that kind of stuff. And I got a lot of cool opportunities from it, from playing with AOC or playing on The Tonight Show and all of that. But honestly, it's like, it feels so stereotypical and cheesy to say this, but I think it is. I think a lot of people have also seen this. It's like the connections you've made with people, because obviously, like, still very sad that I'm sure, like, you know, some people have lost touch and all that kind of thing. But I've made some like genuinely amazing friendships. I have met some amazing people just like talking online and, you know, like being able to connect online and have that kind of space, as I'm sure we are all very used to playing in games and a lot, and connecting with folks online is like this amazing experience. Yeah. And there's so many people to be grateful for. Like the Inner Sloth folks are some of them. Yeah, I don't know, just people, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's right. It's incredible how some communities have come together in a way that I don't know that they would have without this event. And it sucks that it happened. It sucks that it's still happening. But like, it is astonishing to see how people have connected in a way that they might not have before. And it's because of what's going on.
For sure.
I do want to ask, how hotly contested and debated are your favorite bubble tea flavors? Because it's on your website, so I feel like you feel very strongly about bubble tea. I am not personally a bubble tea fan myself, but like, do you have a favorite flavor? Is there a flavor you go to bat for that people are like, that sucks? Like, I'm curious about your bubble tea thoughts.
Okay, so here's the thing. It depends on your mood, right? Like, are you feeling something fruity? Are you feeling something milky? Like, who knows? And as with bubble tea flavors, I'm like, the beauty of it, just like games, is that there's so many different flavors. There are different toppings. You don't have to get bubbles. Who cares about that? You can get pudding. You can get jelly. You can get whatever you want. You don't have to have toppings. I don't care. That's why I love it so much. It's just like games. There's a genre for everybody. But my personal favorite is specifically from this. So there's this brand, there's a store chain called Genjudan, and they do a capped Thai tea brown sugar pearl milk tea that is so good. I'm obsessed with it. That is my favorite. Though I am also very into mango flavored bubble teas as well.
You heard it here first, folks. I love that I throw this question out like, oh, here's the gag. I'm going to refer back to the website. And you have a thoughtful, engaging, and creative answer. Like, shows me what I know.
I'm very serious about my bubble tea. It's never a joke.
Victoria, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. This was so much fun. Before we wrap up and I have you do our sign off, please tell folks where they can find you online, the best place to connect with you, and of course, where they can find Among Us game, the hit of the century, Among Us.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was a ton of fun. Thank you for having me. If you want to find me around on the internet, I'm on Twitter at the Tran. I am also on my website writing stuff about community management, victoriatran.com. If you want to hear more about Among Us, see what we're up to, all the updates, our new game potentially in the future, innersloth.com is the place to go. Among Us game on Twitter, Among Us on TikTok. We're everywhere.
That's true. Also, buy yourself a cute mug or a crewmate. I am on that merch store every day thinking about what to pull the trigger on.
Do it.
I think it's about time I bought definitely a mug and for sure some kind of plushy crewmate to go up there.
Kirby
looks lonely. Look at him. Yeah, you just put him up there and he can sit.
Exactly.
There's nothing cuter than a sitting crewmate. I didn't know that like them sitting down was adorable, but now that I've seen it, it's like, well, that's all I want in my life is a cute little sitting crewmate.
So cute. So cute.
Well, again, thank you for taking the time. This was wonderful. The last thing I'll have you do is we have a saying on the show. The saying is, music is life and life is good. It was born out of my now on indefinite hiatus music podcast because I refuse to admit that it's ended. But it's this idea that as long as you're creating, as long as you're making something, as long as you're working on something you're passionate about, even when life gets hard, it's not that bad because you have that thing to look forward to. So if you could say music is life and life is good, we'll wrap up the show.
Music is life and life is good.
That's it for this episode of CPOV Autographs. Our theme music is by Michael Kill. Our logo was designed by Case Aiken and Joey Amons. If you liked the show, please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. It's a great way to help us reach more listeners. Questions, comments, or guest recommendations? Email mr.matt.storm@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at CPOV Autographs. Thank you so much for listening.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun, whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen,
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
and on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.